Greetings, and thank you all for coming today. It's great to see you on this beautiful sunny day. Since we will be learning about our natural environment, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the Historical Society and indeed the Bang Center and all of Amherst stands on the traditional homeland of the Nipmuc and Kumtuk people. And we should honor this land, its stories, and its people. And we honor their stories actually through activities of the Historical Society. Some people, including my spouse, have questioned why the Historical Society engages with our physical environment. It's quite easy to fold architectural history into our programming for an historical society. But we have a wonderful backstory which we'll explore in great depth next year. Let us just say today that our founder, Mabel Loomis Todd, was an environmentalist. So today we have scheduled a conversation about the Massachusetts Mammals Citizen Science Team, a research group focused on tracking mammal populations across the state through community data submissions. Amherst College supports these efforts through a website and the engagement of their community members. Two undergraduate researchers, Camilla Lash, class of 27, and Elise Farley, class of 25, will share information about the history of black bears in Massachusetts, have a conversation about their project, and invite you to learn how you can become more engaged in their efforts. And since we've had black bears in my backyard, yes, I'm really eager to hear this, so thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Well, now that we've built up all this anticipation, thank you for your patience. So thank you for the introduction as well. So I'm Elise.
I'm Camilla.
Yeah, and we work with the Mass Mammals Participatory Science Project. Oh, here we are again.
So our group overall is called Mass Mammals, and that's usually what you'll see when you go to our first website or like go to try to find us through the college. But overall, we're kind of two groups of study, but like we're all the same people, mass bears and mass mammals. And our goal is just to have a collaborative wildlife monitoring project. So basically we set up trail cams ourselves, we go into classrooms, we connect with students, we connect with volunteers, we connect with other programs in town, we participate in the farmers market, etc., trying to engage the community with our project because we can't get this data alone, especially when, you know, like, we live on the college campus, right? So, you know, like we don't actually have bears in our yard, but like all of Amherst and other parts of Massachusetts we want to focus on. So we engage with your questions, we engage with any media you send us regarding like tracks, like scat, sightings in general, anything you have. If you're like, oh, I don't know what this is, but it keeps coming to my house, should I be worried about it? Send it to us, we can probably help you with it. But also we just want to educate. Because there are a lot of misconceptions, especially with like larger mammals, about like, you know, fears with them and whatnot. And so it's important to get like the youth involved and make sure that like younger students want to engage in science, but also want to engage and know about the mammals around them, and just everyone in the community.
So this is our team currently. We are all undergrads at Amherst College, across a bunch of different majors. Myself, I'm a biology and education studies major.
I'm an LJST major, which is law, jurisprudence, and social thought,
Yeah,
but I'm
so
also pre-med, so yeah.
We've got humanities, we've got STEM, we've got people from all across different departments that are interested in the project of community science and science education. And this is our principal investigator, Dr. Taya Christensen, who founded the project in 2019 and has had a rotating cast of students helping her carry it out because there are a lot of moving parts. So she is an excellent head to our project, but she is also really insistent on making sure that students have a lot of latitude to follow projects that they're interested in and really take charge of the project in ways that are exciting to them.
So I can talk a little bit about data collection. I'm on more of like the data and outreach side of the whole study. So one thing that we focus on a lot is community member submissions. So we have obviously our website where you could go and click on a link to start submitting media from your own trail cameras, from your doorbell cameras, from a photo you just take or video you take. And then if you can tell us like the coordinates and whatnot, then we deal with that, and we build a map. So when you go on our website, there's actually a map of, goes back to 2020 and 2019, there's some data from, but like mainly 2020 and up, just a bunch of mammal sightings, and you could break it down if you want to see just where bears are, just where the coyotes are, if you want to see where deer are. So you can go on our website, go on our map, and just like kind of specify what year you're looking for, what things you're looking for. But that really comes from us being able to talk to the community and talk to people in other parts of Massachusetts to get an overall view. Just understanding like habits of the animals, making sure that populations still exist, you know, keep doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, so these are our 4 branches that we've been talking about a little bit. We have our research branch that's like collecting, dealing with our data. We have our volunteer contributions, which is what we get from all of you and other people all across Massachusetts. We have our educational outreach, which is the team that I'm part of, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but we partner up with local Massachusetts classrooms and get them involved in our data collection. And we also have community outreach, which is what we're here doing with you guys today, and what we do at farmers markets and other events where we can get the word out and increase our volunteer awareness.
Yeah, so our principal researcher, Dr. Taya Christensen, she loves bears. It's something she worked on a lot when she was in college, when she was a grad student and undergrad. That's what her thesis was about. And so we care a lot about bears as well then, and that's why we're interested. I know personally she got me through, I was in her Bio 181 lab, and she was like, hey, you seem like you have the right energy to like learn about this and seem really excited. And unfortunately we won't be covering all of these bears. I know you want to know about the polar bear and the spectacled bear, but we have American black bears in the area, so that is what we will be covering.
Where is the sun bear from?
They live in Asia. Yeah, so
Weird
they're-
looking.
Yeah,
Yes,
they're pretty adorable. Yeah, they kind of look like a person in a bear suit. They walk up around on 2 legs. Very cute.
So before we go into just the bears, just a little broad history of carnivores in North America, and specifically the Northeast. So during colonial America times, like fur trade was really popular, not only just in Americas, but sending fur back to England. And so that just created a lot of depletion of populations because there were no really like hunting regulations. It was just like, okay, keep trapping, keep making money, keep getting fur. So there was no control. And then that leads to issues with like the cascades and how animals work with one another. So that really affected bears, deer, beaver, and fishers, which I don't know if you all know what the fishers are, but they're kind of weasel-like animals.
That fisher cat?
Yes, fisher cat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the use of bear fats and etc. for their oils was really popular. And so that led to a decline in bear populations. And so yeah, just the real takeaway is that there were no real hunting regulations. There's also just like the fear of like if colonizers are trying to obtain new land, right? Then their deforestation occurs, you know, because you gotta like start building houses and whatnot. So the animals are being pushed farther and farther back from what they're normally used to, and they're also being hunted. So it's just, yeah, just taking that into account. Yeah, so then talking a little bit about conservation movements and regulations. The initial like conservation efforts and like concerts, meaning like conventions to talk about them started in the early 1800s. It was just over concern, lack of species to hunt. So the real issue was like, wait, we want to keep hunting, but we noticed that there aren't enough animals. It wasn't just like, hey, like we need to talk about this. It came from a source of still trying to make money off of it. Then in the 1900s, the national park systems began during like the early / mid 1900s. Then 1960s, the start of the modern environmental movements, which means just more focus on like pollution and deforestation in general, and not just hunting. It was just more of like, how are we interacting with animals? And some notable activists, always community land trusts are always important, nature conservancy groups, and then Theodore Roosevelt was a big help, John Moore, and Dorothy Booth.
Yeah, so this is an excellent photo we got from a state biologist that we've worked with. This is a map of bear distribution. So as you can see, Massachusetts is very much a tiny part of their range. And the light gray here is their primary range, and then the black is their secondary range, so they're more common in the lighter gray areas. We study bears specifically because they serve a lot of important ecological functions. In addition to being regulation for a lot of prey animals, they're also great seed dispersers. We like to think about bears as carnivores a lot, but they are omnivores, and most of their diet is actually consisting of berries, other seeds that they're foraging, so they serve a really important role there. And as Camilla noted, there is a lot of fear and misconception around black bears. People are afraid of attacks, they are afraid of interactions with their animals, and just in general there's kind of a lack of awareness of what to do if there's a bear in your yard. If that's not something that you've experienced, it sounds like this group has some experience with that, so we're maybe a little braver here, but a lot of our volunteers are people that have maybe never seen a bear in their lives before, and they see one and they're really excited, but they don't quite know what to make of it. So, as we noted earlier, black bears were quite abundant in Massachusetts prior to colonization by Europeans, but colonists cut down a lot of forests to make space for homes and also to make space for agriculture. As you know, Amherst, Hadley, our surrounding areas are very agriculture heavy, and a lot of the original forests here have been clear cut for that purpose. So yeah, and they were also hunted, as we noted, for the meat, the fur, and their oil and fat. So in the 1970s, it was estimated that there were only 80 bears left in all of Massachusetts. So all those bears you're seeing in their backyards, like 50 years ago, they were not there. So this is showing the towns that they were in. And now, over time, agricultural shifts have began letting the bears back into Massachusetts. So this is a map of forested area in 1830. As you can see, there's a little bit down here by the Cape and little patches in between, but pretty much the entire state was cleared of its forests. And in 1999, a lot of that has come back. So although we don't have those virgin untouched forests anymore throughout most of the state, a lot of the state has been reforested, which is what has drawn black bears back into the state. And also there were harvest regulations, so now we have strict hunting laws about when and how you can hunt for bears. So as a result, they have begun moving back east and have even started crossing their way back across the Connecticut River. There have even been reports of bears crossing the bridge onto Cape Cod in the past few years. So
they go on the bike lane?
I'm not sure, but I think in 2023 there was one seen in Sandwich. And I think they maybe airlifted it out actually, so that he could go back over the bridge. But yeah, they are coming back in a strong way, and as a result, we have a lot of bear-human interactions. So just like the 1800s, we are coming back into contact with our bears again. They're not just hiding in our remote forests, but they are on our bridges, they are in our yards, they're in our neighborhoods. This has caused a lot of media attention and buzz because, again, people are frightened of them and respectful of them, as they should be, but they are particularly attracted to human areas because of things like garbage, chicken coops, sometimes people's pet food, or just their pets themselves that are left down the yard can attract bears. So some strategies that are very common to suggest are to store garbage inside until it is trash day, to store pet food inside, and to use electrical fencing and fenced-in coops for chickens and other backyard animals, and to avoid putting out bird food, which I know is not an easy suggestion to follow. I work in a bird lab myself, and I absolutely adore birds, so that's a suggestion that sometimes people have a hard time taking to heart, but it can help if people have persistent problems with bears coming into their backyard. So bear attacks are actually more rare than being hit by lightning. In the last 120 years, there have been about 60 fatal bear attacks in the country. So although they can happen, if you are educated and take preventative measures, they're very unlikely to occur, even as we're having bears move back into sharing areas with humans.
Oh, wait, could we read that if you see a bear near your?
Yes, of course, yeah, so harass is the first recommendation. Yeah, bang pots and pans. You can use a whistle, an air horn. Usually just the sound of your voice is enough to alert a bear. If you're out walking in the woods and they hear you talking, they're probably gonna go the other way because they don't want to interact with you either most of the time. As I mentioned before, check and remove food sources like bird feeders, like pet food, like garbage bins. And if you do encounter a bear, they say to talk in a calm voice, to back away slowly, not to run. And you can fight back if a bear tries to attack you.
If a black bear.
Yeah, if a black bear tries to attack you. That is a rare occurrence that hopefully will not happen to you, but they usually figure out that it's not worth it and they just back off. And they're like, oh, yeah, they're actually fighting back. I'm not going to deal with this. So they tend to back off.
So if they're scared of us and they don't like us, do they like dogs and cats or some other mammals?
Generally the same thing holds true, that they're pretty shy, and if they hear a lot of ruckus, they will try to go the other way and just not avoid it. But they may see a small cat or a dog and think they have a better matchup against that than a human. But as you guys probably know, small dogs are pretty ferocious, so there's been a lot of instances of them chasing bears out of their owners' backyards as well.
But they don't have any social interaction
Not typically.
with other mammals.
With other wild mammals?
Yeah.
That's a good
I mean,
question.
you sort of sound like instinctively they're afraid of human. They hear us talking and they run the other way. Are there any other animals where they hear them talking and they want to join in?
I would say I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. There might be some secret bear, bobcat, deer meetups in the woods that I'm not aware of.
Well, why not?
Could be like the bank center, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Is their eyesight and their hearing equally strong, or is one more strong than the other? Their hearing or their eyesight?
That's a good question. I would say because they're predators and carnivores and they do eat meat, they have pretty good eyesight. But you know, as I said, they also spend a lot of time looking for berries. So I don't know. I don't know the answer if one is better than the other. Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Research.
All right. I can talk about our research that we do. So one thing that's wonderful is, again, Dr. Tay Christensen lets us all come onto the project, you know, when she gets to know us and she like kind of selects us. But she also lets us like kind of create projects that we want to get involved in. And a really beautiful thing is we actually have a lot of minority students in the lab group together. So it's really nice to just have these opportunities. Like I really appreciate her for that. But yeah, so we do a lot of research like with our own trail cams that we have, especially like summer research. People would go set those up, actually check on them more often than we do in the school year versus because during the school year we just kind of like obtain the data from our computers, like when it's sent over. But over the summer people go switch those out. They go, they look around the area and whatnot. But a lot of our research is our engagement with community members because this is a participatory science project. So we look at what it's like for science to be an engagement effort and not just be strictly in a wet lab or strictly in a field and not letting people interact with that and only sharing like an article with you later. So we do really care about community member contribution and we continue to like recruit people for sightings. So that's why we do all our efforts with like the farmers market and coming to events like this because we want you to know about us and we want you to feel like you are part of our lab because that's what you should feel like when you're volunteering with us. So yeah, so if you want to right now, you don't have to because we probably have more QR codes later, but you can like scan to get to our website, but we can also come back to this later.
Yeah, and this is the map of our sightings that we've collected from volunteers and also from some news reports. So this is what it looks like if you go onto our website and look at the map. This is just selected for bears right now. You can see our one little sandwich bear there that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, this is all data that we have collected from our project and put a GPS location on, and as you can see, there are bears all across this state. So we are very much getting data to back up the observations that have been suggesting this move east.
Also, sorry, just a little thing. When you're on the website, you can kind of see it now. There are different colors of the bears. It represents the different year that it was found. So, like right now, it's like a dark brown for the 2024 bears. So you'll see that when you're on the website.
Yeah. So this is one of our most recent articles published from our lab, which is about the influence of COVID-19 on the establishment of and collection by a citizen. A collection of data by a citizen science project, and this is talking about a lot of the things that we mentioned of how the COVID-19 pandemic actually allowed a lot of people to get involved because they were looking for things to do. They're spending a lot more time outside and in their homes and looking out at their backyards.
Yeah, so this is just one of the figures from that article. And here it's just showing like where our engagement for sightings actually comes from. So a lot of it was obtained consistently from newspapers, but people, especially since it was during the pandemic, engagement with searching up Amherst College and kind of seeing ways like, can I participate in some way, and then like through our own website. So that's what the red category is, internet search in Amherst College. So that's how people find us, that's how they get their sightings through. And so that was really and then this is another figure, so it was just saying, like, the figure A over here, it's just telling us, like, where sightings are actually taking place. So a lot of that, again, since it was, like, submitted information, came from yards and neighborhoods. And it also came from forests, farms, and fields, but mainly what we were getting was, like, actually, like, community members in their homes saying, this is what's happening outside right now. So that was really lovely to see, because like you're directly participating in something you know, and it's not just like an off chance that you found a bear, it was in your location. And then the second figure, figure B, just talked about forest coverage and the year in which the data was obtained. So we noticed that where like the 50 mark, where there was a bit more forest coverage, it made more sense that there would be more bears in the area.
Yeah, but an important part of our findings was that because we are a citizen science project and people are reporting bears where they see them, we see a lot of reports in areas with around 50% or less forest coverage. And I don't know if anyone can think of maybe an issue with that, of like, oh, we're seeing bears in places with less forest, but what do we expect? We expect bears to probably be living more in the woods. And this is really highlighting an important caveat of community science that our project has to work around, which is that we get reports of places where bears come into contact with humans, but not a lot of people are out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, setting up their trail cameras or seeing bears in their backyard. So our data is going to be skewed towards bear reports in backyards, in places with lower forest coverage, despite the fact that that is not everywhere that the bears are actually existing, but just where we're getting the overlap of bears and volunteers reporting.
But it's also where there's more food.
That's true, yes. Yeah, so this is just another graph that is kind of reiterating the same concept that after about 75% of forest coverage, we have a big drop-off in reporting. And again, that's not necessarily because there are no bears in places with 100% forest cover, but just that there are not as many humans there.
I wonder if they make a distinction between forest cover and land that has water, like streams and rivers.
Yeah, that's
Right.
definitely another important thing, is like land use and land type can also play a role, yeah. Yeah, so this is another map showing a very similar thing.
So yeah, so these are just other examples of participatory or citizen science. So iNaturalist, I learned about it in high school, and then I also learned about it again coming to Amherst College, but it's an app and also a website. But the app allows you to like take pictures of a plant or of an animal and be like, what is this? And it'll give you information about it. And then also if you want, like, you can say like, it'll like collect that data. It won't collect your name or anything, but it'll just like note that that species was in that area. And so iNaturalist is helpful in us getting sightings because we can also put our sightings as part of iNaturalist data, and we can also obtain more information from them if a sighting occurred, but we don't actually have more details about the area we can get from them. And then the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, they have this thing called eBird, and it's similar to Seek, but you can either record a bird call that you're hearing in a forest, and if you could take a photo, most of the time you can't, because sometimes it's just like you hear a sound of a bird and you're like, where is it? Like, what's coming from? You can submit that onto the app, and I believe they have a website as well. And it can again tell you exactly what type of bird is making that noise, and so and it'll also say like where the location was. So these are just other examples of what participatory science looks like. It's getting people involved.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about our educational branch, which again is the part of the project that I am involved with. So our education program involves partnering with local classrooms in the Amherst School District, but also beyond. And we have an exchange with them where we give them a trail camera, so that allows us to collect more data from their area. And then in exchange, they get the experience of participating directly in a science project, and then we also come to their classrooms and deliver lesson plans that we've designed ourselves. And that really allows us to build scientific engagement and competency in these classrooms. We see a lot of kids getting really excited about science if they get to talk to college researchers and kind of have a model of what they might do one day if they're interested in ecology or in general in being a part of a science lab. So yeah, these are the trail cameras that we give to each of our classrooms, and we have a lesson at the start of the year where we show them how to use it. We set it up with them. They get to go outside and pick a location that they think will get a lot of animal traffic, and then at the end of the year we come back to that classroom, we take down their camera, see the data they've been collecting, and they get to play with their data, take a look at it, see pictures of the animals that are in their area, and log it as part of our project.
Does it work at night too?
It does, yeah.
It has a night vision?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
It works at night, like without turning on the light, it sees infrared.
Yes. Yeah.
In the same way that yards are where people are seeing and interacting with bears, trails also seem to have that kind of bias.
Yes.
Do you have any aspect of your work where you try and kind of randomize forest locations that are like maybe deep forest so that you learn about not just human easily accessible areas, but
Yeah, I think that's actually part of some of the summer research that a few of our members were doing, which will be a little later on in our talk, but in general, I think that's something that we would like to work on, but obviously it has a lot of practical constraints just because this project is staffed by college students who are pretty busy and don't have the time to go out into the deep woods every week and collect our SD cards. But that is a really excellent point, and I think something that in the future would be a really great part to include in our research. So these are a couple, it's a little small on the screen here, but a couple of our sample lesson plans that we provide for classrooms. We have one about bears as seed distributors, we have one about land use, we have one about soil erosion, and we have one about moose and tick population dynamics. So these are some of the things that our kids that we work with get to learn about, and each of the teachers that we partner up with, we give them a little lesson menu at the start of the semester, and they can pick what they think works best for them and what times work best for them, and that way they can fit as much as possible into their curriculum without feeling like we're kind of asking too much of them to work around their schedule. So this is another article that we published about our work in the classrooms. And here's one of our members, Corey, with some of the students. We got a lot of positive testimonial from students and teachers and Amherst students alike who were involved in this project. This was a great quote from one of our teachers that was especially excited about our presence in their classroom and what it did for their students' engagement in science lessons. And then outside the classroom, we have some other events. This was a story hour that Camilla was part of in the Benesky Museum at Amherst. And then we do some other research in other nature centers around the area. And then we also have our El Caminante story hour. These are some of our students that are Spanish speakers and decided that they wanted to branch out part of our project to serve Spanish-speaking students in the community. So they did translation of a bunch of our lesson plans and also participate in a story hour so that we can reach out to even more students in our area. So our project has been really excellent, not just for the students in the classrooms that we serve, but also for the undergraduate researchers like us that are part of it. And that was part of the article that we published that took a lot of testimonials from our undergraduate researchers and showed that people felt like they had a greater connection to science and research, and that it caused a lot of excitement about future research and wanting to be more involved in similar projects and in general just developing skills of being a researcher, and the part of that is not just sitting at a computer looking at your Excel spreadsheets, but actually reaching out to people and working with community partners. And these were some of the categories of things that people suggested in their interviews about how they felt being part of the project. And these top two, the appreciation for and engagement with science and the collaboration in the community, were definitely the most brought up in all of the interviews that we do.
Yeah, so now I can talk about community outreach. So for community outreach, we kind of needed to figure out what's the best way to interact with people in our area, because oftentimes people don't come to the college, we must go out. So farmers markets are a great way to engage. So we usually just set up a booth. There'll be an activity. A popular one we did was just we got a bunch of leaves and sticks and would have, it was usually children would come up to the booth with their parents, and they would be able to make a animal out of it, out of the given materials. And then there's also one that's build a bear out of pine cones that people really loved. So that was good. But yeah, it's a lot of social media management as well and engagement. I'm part of the group that works on the Instagram, I guess with James and Zaina, yeah. So we do work on the Instagram, and we do little updates about the members in the group, but we also do fun little reels on sightings, or we'll post a fun fact about an animal. I know we have a segment about skunks coming out. So yeah, so a big thing is just knowing what demographics we actually can engage with, and a lot of getting other college students involved is through the Instagram, but also getting other towns involved is through Facebook and Instagram, because that's how they can find out about us if they're not obviously coming to our local farmers markets. Then also we have our newsletters, which we can send out. We send out monthly to all the people that have engaged with us before, but then also they forward it to their friends. And so it's just multiple ways of actually engaging and being with the community. So yes, we study animals a lot. We study the mammals that we have a major focus on, but we also study what it's like to measure engagement as a science project, because it's not done often.
What's your Instagram?
Yeah, we'll have it at the end, but it's just Mass Mammals Watch, at Mass Mammals Watch. All one word. Your volunteer contributions. So community participation. So we always, especially on our newsletters and our Instagram, we'll always highlight who the photo was taken by, because that's really important. Making members feel like they are part of our lab. But yeah, what's really important in community participation is giving us the actual facts. So when people have their trail cameras, or when they submit a photo and they can say this is where I was, even if it's just I was in this park. We can find the longitude and latitude for you after and plug that in so we can put it in the map. But it's just actually getting data. It doesn't have to be the best photo in the world because that doesn't always matter. But yeah, it's just making sure we actually get data from that. Yeah, we have local forums, valuable resources, and yeah, it's just our engaging in community. It's what makes the project so much more interesting. Because there's so many labs that you could join at Amherst, and the reason I really love Mass Mammals is because I get to meet so many people, and like, I don't know, that read aloud event, I just had like the time of my life. Like little kids, like I was reading like coloring books, and they're pointing out like, oh my gosh, I know that's a bear, that's a moose. I'm like, yes, it is. Like, do you want to learn more? Yeah. So it's really nice to see the different groups engage. And what do we do with the sightings and photos? So like we said, you submit them, try to give us as much information as possible as to where it was taken, if it's not from a trail camera, which we'll do that for you. And then we input the data from the cameras. We have all these spreadsheets, which we sort through weekly. And then we update the map as best we can, like as up to date as we can. We might be like a week off or 2 weeks off in uploading, but it will get up there. And then again, like I said, the bears are like, all the sightings of different animals will be different colors, but like I said, if you're looking for the 2024 bear sightings, click on one of the darker brown bears, and then it'll tell you like when it was sighted, where it was spotted, you know what I mean? It just goes deeper after you click on it. And then, so we build the models, we build the maps ourselves. We're also trying to get into using AI to help sort the photos because that's very prominent in our line of work. Let me share our findings.
Okay, yeah, so we just went over that, and we'll have, at the end, we'll remind you where you can submit on our website. So you can become a registered volunteer by filling out the Google form that's on this QR code, and we can also, we'll give you the website. It's just Mass Mammals Watch. So if you look us up, we're pretty easy to find. We're also on the Amherst College website, and we have people that regularly upload videos every month. We have people that just submit one sighting. We have people that send in photos, and we have people that just give us a location and a time. All of those things are usable, and all of those things are great. So as Camilla said, as much information as you can give us is excellent, but you can just volunteer and submit one time or as many times as you like.
Do you go to sites?
We don't typically. I think the nice thing about it is that people are kind of out there doing the footwork for us so that we don't have to be in all of these locations to get our data.
But we also we all monitor our inbox, the email inbox that we have. So if you submit photos, but also if you're just submitting questions like, hey, I have this bear, or I have this, I think it's a bobcat constantly coming to me like in my backyard, and it's like destroying my bird feeder, it's destroying my birds and whatnot. We can probably answer that. Like Taya really gets on top of that and answers that. But yeah, we also help with that. So you don't have to feel like, oh, it's just because I'm submitting data. Submit questions. We can help you with any of that as well.
Yeah. So in addition to people just submitting one-off sightings or like pictures they get on their phone, we have many volunteers that have their own trail cameras and that leave them out and then submit that data to us consistently. And that is a really excellent thing to have as part of our project because it tells us not only when the bears are there, but when the bears are not. That's another caveat of our citizen science project, is that in addition to getting more sightings in places where people and bears overlap, we also obviously don't get people texting, I didn't see a bear today at this location, no bears at these coordinates. So we know when they're there, but then sometimes we don't know if they were there and just nobody saw them. So trail cameras solve that problem by giving us data about when the bears are there and when they're not there. Yeah, so these are all of these are most of the mammals that we are interested in receiving reportings of. Pretty much any large mammal that you can find in Massachusetts. Deer are very common. We don't get a lot of people super excited about seeing a deer, but yeah, large carnivores like coyotes, bobcats, fishers, bears, we take all of that data as part of our project.
Where's the animal in the lower right hand? When I can't see anything.
It's right here. It's a little weasel. You can see his eyes
Oh.
shine from the camera there. Yeah, that's honestly another tough part of our project is just looking at some of these pictures and figuring out what is that big blob in the night.
Yeah, so something that we're thinking about and working on for the future is something called our ambassador program. So we basically have this idea where people obviously do submit a lot of photos and whatnot, but those people who like are constantly working on the project, whether or not they want to be ambassadors and like go out into their neighborhood and be like, hey, so this is Mass Mammals and I would like it if you could also submit photos and whatnot, and they can kind of be like a little leader in their own sense, and then also they could like do Zoom meetings with us and really engage more with us instead of just submitting, like they'd actually like, meet us and work with us more. So yes, that's something that we're working on and hopefully can do in the future, but it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, so again, we are at farmers markets, we have our monthly newsletter, and we have our social media. Those are all ways you can find us. If any of you are part of local next door groups or
Yes,
other
thank you.
similar apps, and people are in there reporting bears, you can say, hey, I know about this great project, you should send your reporting there so that they can keep track. That's something that we're not able to be a part of, so if our volunteers can spread the word in these community groups, that's something that is really helpful to our project. So in the future, our goal is to expand our project. That's pretty much always our goal, actually. That's why we're constantly doing outreach. We have a lot of volunteers in the Amherst and Northampton area, but we could always use more, and we are trying to move out further east with our farmers market tabling and some of our marketing and flyers so that we can get reporters from across the state. And we're developing partnerships with a lot of different communities and land trust organizations, Audubon societies, things like those that have similar ecological and preservation interests to our own project.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the summer research that was done. So I was not a summer research group member. I was out doing other things, but a big part of what they did actually relates to your question, which was about what is like actual land use like, and what does that have an effect on locations for mammals that we don't see because we're not in the deep woods a lot of the time. So something that was really important was the Mount Holyoke Range for the summer research students. So they went out there and they thought about a bunch of environmental factors, and that's really like what their main focus was like, how does the environment affect, or how does like pollution and environmental impacts affect those areas we don't go to all the time? Because we're so used to just our suburbs and knowing like what we have around us, but again, we don't see the animals that are out there deep in the woods. So they talked about a lot of trail impact and what that actually does to animals, because it makes them have like a fear of like, should I be going to this area? I keep noticing like humans coming through. So it's just like focusing on the Holyoke Range, what animals we see. So this is a map of the Holyoke Range, and this is the grids kind of where they were planting trail cameras to study here.
Have they published their results?
They haven't, so they've basically just gotten a lot of their data back.
It is only October.
Right, yeah, so we're in the process of collecting the SD cards right now, and trying to get the data that will hopefully kind of help answer some of these questions of how trails and geological features and increased recreational human activity might have an effect.
How about dogs?
That is another great part of it, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's part of the.
Nobody has their dog on a leash.
Right, yeah, that's kind of part of the concern about increased recreational activity, people going on trails, and of course bringing animals or bringing like vehicles, like off-roaders, four-wheelers.
Even bicycles.
Right, yeah, exactly. So here's a couple photos from that data that we've started to collect. We've got a black bear there, a little white-tailed deer, and then a bobcat zooming by at the
Top of
bottom
the
there.
bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is something that actually started in the spring. Is me personally, I really was interested in AI and how it can be used to sort our data, because a lot of what we do is opening our files from our SD cards and going through the photos one by one, and a lot of the time it's like a deer that got interested in the trail camera and was there for maybe 20 minutes, you know, so now you have like 80 photos of the same deer, and you're like, oh, okay. And then sometimes also you have like images of a person walking around in the woods and you're like, oh, I don't need that, so how do you like delete that from the data, you know, and doing that. Also it's just sorting, because we have to then put the location down, the temperature, the time, like we do all of that manually, even though the photo's submitted, like we have to read it all and sort through that. So I was really interested in using AI, and then luckily, one of our members who joined as a summer researcher and now is still with us, Ellen studies comp sci a little bit and like was also interested in AI. So then Taya sat down with IT and all the summer researchers, and they started talking about integrating AI into our trail camera photos and sorting. So we're trying to get that like strongly used. But so far, yeah, that's something we're working on. Is actually AI. Yes. So now, if you would like to follow our Instagram, if you have Instagram or Facebook. It's just at Mass Mammals Watch. Same thing, if you're just searching for our website, just type up Mass Mammals and it will be the first thing that pops up. But yeah, we try to post a lot. We do like little funny skits, like that's something that's featured in this one with the bear. And then we also do just introduce some of the members we have, introduce the projects we're working on, and then we'll do like little photos like this one. It's like the side of a bobcat's face, but what we had done was we did multiple posts being like, can you guess what this animal is slowly over time? Yeah, and then it's also just featured submissions from our volunteers.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate having your ear, especially people that are already so engaged with the local community, and we would love to have you, your neighborhoods, your communities, your families be involved in our project. So again, any sort of question that you have, anything you see that you think might be interesting, please go on our website. All of our submission forms are on there and easy to find, or you can reach out to us at our email. And we'd like to thank the Amherst Biology Department and our PI, Taya, as well as the Center for Community Engagement at Amherst that helped get us connected with you guys, and the Center for Teaching and Learning. So thank you so much for having us.
Why I suggested you do on-site work.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gillen has a farm with chestnut trees. A mother and her children were in the field eating chestnuts. I think you're talking about bear. It's bear, what did I say?
Mother and child.
Children.
Not a bear.
It's a mother and a child.
understood.
No, it was a bear. All right, and then mom sent the kids up to get the chestnuts. We have scat for you. Do you have photos? No, we can do the photos of the scat, but 2 people saw them. Oh, I got this meeting.
And it's on our website, when you go there, we have like different tabs you can click on for submitting things, but we
And
have
we
a
will
section
definitely do
all
that.
about scat, and a separate like file for you to submit
And we'll
scat
take a picture of it.
marks.
Does anything happen in the winter, like, November through February, March?
Yeah, we still definitely do get sightings. A lot of our target mammals are still active then.
Bears don't hibernate in Amherst anymore.
Anymore.
There's plenty of food. They don't need to hibernate
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
they're giving birth.
Especially coyotes like to stay out. Coyotes never hibernate, they just grow a thicker coat, so we start to see them become more of like a bigger feature during the winter time, and then also moose are really exciting to see. So we do see things in the winter.
The male
We still have
bears
cameras
wander around all winter. They don't have to hibernate. They've got fur coats.
Yeah.
That's right. And we keep feeding them. Stupid us.
And part of our flyers we have for trail camera setup, like it mentions like how high you should be putting trail cameras based on the snowfall we usually get, because you don't want your camera covered up.
Our snowfall is this.
Yeah, so if anybody has a trail camera of their own or is interested in getting one, we brought some of these flyers that have some information about what are some of the best types to get and where are ideal areas to set them up if you're interested.
But I'm gonna assume there's a lot of trail cameras near the rail trail and on the Amherst College campus, woods, you know, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah,
We have them in the different sanctuaries we have, all over.
yeah, yeah. So there's
Yeah,
not,
of
I
course,
don't
of
need
course.
to try to find it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
When you hear dog-like animals, a bunch of them like yip yip yipping like crazy at night, like stirring themselves up into some big uproar, what are those?
Those would be coyotes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I just heard some maybe 3 nights ago at midnight. I was studying away late into the night, and I heard it outside, and I ran out, and along the tree line on the soccer fields of Amherst, I heard probably 15 coyotes all
Really?
yipping and howling together. So
Why do they
yeah.
do that?
That's a good question. Maybe it's those late night meetups. They all congregate and talk to each other. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Huh.
How long do they live?
The black bears? You know the answer to that? It's a really good question. Yeah,
That's
I know the
more
answer to
about
the
like
question.
the cubs, like when they finally go off into their own. I never actually really.
I think that's at 2 or so, when the mother kicks them out.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
But how long they live, I don't know.
That's,
If they don't get hit by a car.
if they don't get
Yeah.
hit by a car, if they don't get hunted, it's, there's no like exact.
Is there a hunting season for bears locally?
There's 2.
Yeah, I believe there is. Yeah, and I think they have a limit. I think there's a cap on how many permits they give out for hunting. So it's much more regulated now, and that's a pretty constant source of contention, because you have people that want to hunt them for sport, you have people that want to hunt them for food, and some people want to do it for population management purposes because the population has ballooned so much in the past 50 years. But yeah, so I think that's always a little bit in flux.
How do you interact with the state bear biologist? Like, does he find this useful, or does he have his own website with community spotters?
Yeah, I'm not sure that they have their own community submissions tab, so I think that's something that we do that's different to their project. But we have partnered with state organizations in the past, like the Fish and Wildlife Service, and they've been really helpful with giving us information about bear interactions that we can give to our volunteers. So all that stuff about chickens and birdseed and garbage and stuff are things that we've gotten from them. And then, yeah, we generally have a very positive relationship with them.
I wonder if things that I see on YouTube, for example, are misleading. For example, black bears approaching humans and people standing their ground and letting them sniff you. Yeah, or being at a picnic table and making a sandwich and giving it to,
Yeah.
being friendly and not hostile to the animal.
Well, that's definitely an unfortunate side effect of the overlap that bears have with humans, and
Yeah.
part of the interest in our project is trying to raise awareness not only to know how to safely interact with bears, but also to be very respectful and treat them like the wild animals that they are, because a lot of people will engage in behavior like that where they're purposefully feeding them, they think they're cute, they think they're cuddly, and that is definitely not something that we want to promote. So we want to make sure that people are aware of the fact that we can coexist with them, but also that we want to keep them as wild as possible, keep them out of our neighborhoods as possible, and kind of give back their habitat where we can, so that they don't feel like they have to encroach on human land to have enough space and have enough food.
Yeah. That actually was the question I was wondering about, is this data used in any way for wildlife management policy? I lived for many years in Western Canada, and we had nuisance bears, and they would track them and they would relocate them. Are they able to, is this something that your group is doing, or providing information to the DNR in order to figure this out, where to mitigate the interactions?
Yeah, right now, I don't believe that any of our data is being used for that purpose. We are in a phase currently where we are collecting data and kind of looking for questions that the community is interested in having answered with our data, but we don't have any current project that's identifying specific problem bears. Yeah.
Massachusetts doesn't relocate bears, because when you do, they come back.
Yeah,
So.
it wasn't a very effective policy in DC either.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because I was sitting on my front porch and having a little snooze, and a bear came and was sniffing my ear.
Oh, wow, oh my goodness.
So I was like, that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want that bear relocated.
Yeah,
But the problem is when bears think people provide food, eventually one of them breaks into somebody's kitchen.
Right.
You know, and then the only real solution Massachusetts has is to kill the bear.
That's right.
Because you can't really relocate it. So it's not fair to the bears for us to do things, purposely or not, that cause them to think that we're good providers of food for them.
Right, that's correct. I'd like to think about it like, Yogi Bear was a cartoon
Oh,
I
right.
personally loved growing up. And so, I don't know why, but I kind of believe that that's what an interaction with a bear should be like. Like, no, he's just gonna be pesky and trying to steal my food, but that's something we create, especially when people think like, oh, a cub is so cute, because animals are very curious, just the same way we are, right? So when you go and you start feeding like a little cub or taking pictures of it, you're going to anger the mother that is potentially nearby.
right,
Right? We
yeah,
don't really
yeah.
think of like, sometimes we don't think of like the idea that we need to keep them wild. We have this idea of like everything's so cute and docile, but like, yeah, you are absolutely right. We create these engagements with animals that are like, we're supplying them food, and that's a bad behavior for them to start relying on, especially if we want to keep them out in their own homes, like in their own forest as much as possible, because they do become reliant on humans, they become reliant on our garbage disposals that are outside, and that's what attracts them more and more. So while we're not submitting to large like government groups saying like, hey, we need to get, because we don't want to get rid of bears, that's not our goal at all, we don't want to like force them away or anything, it's just, we really care about engagement with the community because the bears are part of our community, and it's not to like deter humans from caring about the bears, it's to get them to care about the bears in a responsible way. That is, I noticed a bear is coming to my home and coming to my neighborhood, but how, like, what do I have outside my house that's maybe bringing the bear closer than the bear should have been? But yeah, also, I'm sorry if that experience is traumatic.
No.
That sounds really scary. I would be scared.
No, what I'm saying is, could the data be used to say, oh, this particular neighborhood seems to be attracting bears, maybe we need to have a different type of a waste management policy bylaw in the town to prevent people from, to be drawing them. So this is my question, not,
Right.
tracking a bear to kill it.
Yeah.
But,
Retrain the people.
That's right.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
right, use the data to retrain the people.
Yes. That's an excellent
then
way
you
to put
can
it.
do a project.
Takeaway.
Yeah,
Yes.
a new research project.
Wow.
I don't think we should build a wall, do you?
What, on your project with the moose, you said moose and ticks, I assume those are
Yeah.
ticks on the moose, not ticks on us.
Yeah, that lesson plan is about learning about like parasite and animal relationships. So we have, it's a little gross, but the kids actually love it. They get to be the moose, and then they're handed all these things like, oh, I have 4 ticks now, am I gonna make it to the next season? And they get to learn about that in a way that's a little fun and a little gross, which little kids tend to like.
There was a moose wandering around between the rail trail and Station Road several years
wow.
ago, and that moose apparently was just horrifically
Yes.
covered with ticks.
Oh.
I guess other, maybe mosquitoes too, but
It's really hard to
clearly
think of-
was a very ill animal.
It's hard to think of a worse way to go than having your blood
Oh,
sucked
my
out of
gosh.
you.
Ticks
Yeah.
fall off. Any more questions for,
On that note, Gigi.
on that note?
Thank you.
Thank you so